And welcome back to America's Hope. Joining me now is someone who's a pastor, an author, an actor, and lives in the Nashville area. His name is Ben Graham. Ben, thanks for being on America's Hope this
It's my pleasure. Glad to be here today.
Yeah, you have many hats. Pastor, actor, author. What are the three designed to do?
Well, first off, I wear many hats to cover up this shiny bald head of mine. So, the thing was when I was a kid, I said I want to be an actor, and then I said I wanted to play in the NBA, and I said I wanted to be president in 2016 because that's when I'd legally be old enough. I went through all these things, but God called me to ministry. My brothers and I started touring as a music group when I was 12 until I was 21, and when I was 21, I became a senior pastor, and so. I went into ministry very young. By the time I was 14, I was preaching, and so most of the time we go sing places. I'd get asked to speak as well. So ministry was what I did. I'm a fifth-generation pastor, raised around church all my life. But one of my prayers was, God, let my ministry be different than my dad's. Let it be different than my grandfather's. Just let it be different. And so I was just pastoring a ministry outside of Charlotte, and thought I would do that the rest of my life. And God called us to Nashville to start a church. And what I didn't know at the time was God was then beginning to shape, making my ministry a little different. And so I had done my first movie when I was 11, and then really by accident, and then did some stuff through college. But then when we got here, God got us back into the filming, started opening those doors, wrote my first book after we moved here, and now I've got my fourth one coming out. And so God just opened these doors to allow us to expand our ministry. But everything we do is all about reaching people with the gospel, discipling people. And that's the purpose of why we're doing what we're doing.
It's a great purpose. I'm glad that you're doing it because you're walking in your purpose. But I need to point out to people that you talked about fifth generation pastor. One of the greatest pastors known around the world is in your family line, and that's Billy Graham. Yeah. Talk to me about the Graham factor.
Well, one, we have this saying, when you're born a Graham, it's congratulations, it's a preacher. And so we have a lot of preachers in the family. But I think the thing that I was taught as a very young age is it's all about pointing people to Christ. When they took Billy through the library, yesterday was the 6th anniversary of him passing away. They had something special at the library. But when they took him to the library, he said it's too much Billy. He wanted to be about the Lord. And I think that's the thing that we've always tried to do as well, just point people to Christ and let people know it's about the Lord. And that's the purpose of why we exist. And, so we're not trying to build up our name. Our film company is Graham Family Films, but it's really about pointing people to Christ, and that's what we're doing.
Well, that's what he's about. That's what you're about. And it's a good family dynamic that works. You mentioned the 6th anniversary since his passing, and it just touched me because 6 years ago when that happened, I was actually speaking here at NRB. I was working for a different network then. I was invited to come speak, and I just remember all of us being galvanized by his legacy of preaching Christ to a world. From politicians, presidents, kings, dictators, everybody and anybody he was able to speak to. And I remember meeting him when I was a reporter for the 700 Club. He walked into our DC bureau, he looked around and saw what we were doing. He says, "This is how it's done." And he just had that personality to be engaging. I see that same trait in you. So again, it's a family dynamic. And my point leading to my question is, they often say that the ruin of a nation starts at home, but the greatness of a nation also starts at home. And talk to me about the home dynamic and how you're carrying that on.
Well, my wife and I, we've been blessed with 4 boys, and my oldest son's married and gave us our first grandchild. And I think the thing that it starts with is winning your children's heart. If you as a parent can win your children's heart, then you have the greatest opportunity to really share Jesus with them and then let Jesus win their heart as well. And ultimately what's going to keep them close to you is if they have a relationship with Christ. And so, you want your children to know the Lord, but you have to do it in the right way. And growing up as a preacher's kid, my dad was very careful about letting people know that, maybe he said, if you see my child doing something they shouldn't do, if they're about to run out in the parking lot, get run over, please stop them. But don't tell them they shouldn't do it because they're a preacher's kid. It's either right or wrong. It doesn't matter whose child you are. And they try to set a proper balance. And my parents really never pushed us into being a pastor, being in ministry. They just said, do what God wants. I had chances to play sports in college, and I was at a practice. I had committed to a Division I school, and I was at practice, and I said, Dad, he was there with my dad. I said, what do you think I should do? He said, do God's will. I was like, all right, but if you was me, what would you do? He said, I do God's will. I was like, no, you're not getting it. What they did was they encouraged us to find what God wanted for our lives and then just do it with excellence. And so the thing that's encouraged my wife and I, we have 2 adult sons who they turned 18. They didn't just say, hey, I'm out of here. They love being with the family. They love serving the Lord with us. Neither one of them feel like God's called them to be a pastor, but they sure are serving the Lord in the capacities where they're at. And that's encouraging. And that's what it's about is passing down a faith that's more than a religion, passing down a faith that's more than family tradition, but passing down a faith that is a true relationship with God himself through Jesus. And that's what really allows us to reach our children and ensure that the next generation is going to go on to do great things for God.
When you look at the landscape of what's happening in America, I know we just talked about Congress and some of the issues there, but people are bombarded with negativity on a daily basis.
Right.
And yet so many people are clamoring and looking for and hungry for hope that will help them prevail against despair. How do you relate to people that have no clue about faith in God and they're just going through the motions every day trying to find that hope?
Well, I mean, it's nothing new that people have been looking for something to fill the void in their life. A lot of people look for money, fame, all those things. What we're seeing now is in this younger generation, they're looking for causes. They're a cause-oriented generation. They're not looking for the big, mega, expensive church building. They're not looking for, a big program. They're looking for a cause. There's no better cause than the cause of Christ, because that's the only thing that can truly change America. But so many people they're feeling helpless, they're feeling hopeless, they're in need of healing, they're just in need of God doing something in their life. They just don't know where to go. And so what I think is a turnoff for so many people today is so much of what they see in Christianity is not real.
Yeah.
And pastors are human, but you hear of pastors falling into sin or you hear of people. I just recently was told by a lady on set who another person on set said, are you a believer? And she said, I grew up going to church. She said, but when I was about 14, I wanted to get baptized, and the church told my parents they didn't give enough money to the church for me to get baptized. And of course, I've never experienced anything like that. I've heard that, and I said, what in the world? What kind of church is that? When you hear of things like that, there are people who've been hurt by a religion, but they need to know that, what we're talking about is not a religion. It's a relationship with Christ, and he won't leave us. He won't forsake us, and he'll be that friend that sticketh closer than a brother. And he's always there with us, and nothing can fill the void like Christ can. He's the only thing that can truly fill it. And so that's the message we've got to get back. We got to get back to preaching a message of hope. Yes, there is a sense of a message of, because the reality is those that die without Christ will spend eternity in hell. That's the reality. But a lot of people go around on the streets preaching, you're going to hell, and they never give the other side of the message. And it's the message of hope. And I think if we can let people know there is hope in Christ Jesus, maybe, just maybe, they'll look to him to say, maybe he can help me in my situation. And that's my prayer.
Yeah, you're definitely a preacher's preacher.
Well,